The impact knocked Terkes unconscious, but it was the singing that woke him, a melodic hum that seemed to resonate through his very bones. His eyes fluttered open to a world bathed in azure light, the control panel of his scout ship sparking wildly around him. "Mayday, mayday," he croaked, fingers fumbling for the emergency beacon. "This is Lieutenant Terk Hayes of the S Horizon, crash-landed on, somewhere." The communication system sputtered once, then died completely. Terk unbuckled himself from the pilot's seat, wincing as pain shot through his ribs. A quick assessment revealed 2 fractured ribs, a gash above his left eye, and his life support system compromised. He had perhaps 3 days of oxygen left in his suit's emergency reserves. The viewport revealed a landscape unlike anything he'd ever seen. Towering crystal formations that caught the light of twin moons, splitting it into rainbows that danced across a forest floor carpeted with luminescent moss. He'd been exploring the outer reaches of the Cygnus system when the wormhole appeared, unexpected, unstable, and impossible to avoid. Terk gathered what supplies he could and reluctantly left the ship. The air sensors in his helmet registered breathable atmosphere, but protocol demanded caution. He'd wait 12 hours before attempting to remove his helmet, just to be sure. The singing grew louder as he ventured further from his ship. It wasn't mechanical, nor was it any language he recognized. It was primal, almost elemental, like the voice of the planet itself. "Hello," he called out, feeling foolish. The singing ceased abruptly. That's when he saw them, 6-legged creatures with obsidian skin and eyes that glowed like embers, moving with predatory grace through the underbrush. They were each the size of a small tiger, and they were surrounding him. Terk reached for his pulse pistol, but the movement sent searing pain through his injured side. The creatures sensed his weakness, closing in with a series of low growls that vibrated the air around him. "Don't move," a voice whispered directly into his mind. Terk froze, convinced he was hallucinating. The largest of the creatures lunged, and he stumbled backward, falling against one of the crystal formations. But before the creature could reach him, a flash of blinding light erupted between them. When his vision cleared, a woman stood before him. At least she appeared to be a woman. Her skin shimmered like opal, catching and refracting the light. Her hair seemed to be made of flowing silver threads that moved independently of the gentle breeze. Most striking were her eyes, pools of swirling violet that seemed to contain galaxies. She raised her hands, and the air around them rippled with energy. The creatures retreated, their ember eyes dimming in what Terk could only interpret as submission. "You're hurt," she said, though her lips didn't move. Her voice resonated in his mind, clear as a bell. "Your kind are fragile." What are you?" Terk asked, bracing himself against the crystal for support. "I am Nixia," she replied, "and you have fallen into our world, Star Traveler." "Lieutenant Terk Hayes," he managed, fighting to remain conscious as pain and adrenaline surged through his system. "Earth Alliance." "Earth," she repeated, the word carrying a sense of wonder in his mind. "The blue planet, we have heard tales." Terk's legs gave out beneath him and he slumped to the ground. Nixia knelt beside him, her movement fluid and graceful. She placed a hand on his helmet, and to his astonishment, the material seemed to ripple beneath her touch. "You do not need this," she said. "Our air will sustain you, better perhaps than your own." Before he could protest, his helmet dissolved beneath her fingers, leaving him gasping in anticipation of death. Instead, he inhaled the sweetest, most invigorating breath of his life. The air tasted of honey and carried the scent of something like lavender, but more complex, more alive. "How did you?" he began, but was interrupted by another spike of pain from his injuries. "You need healing," Nixia said, concern evident in her mental voice. "Come, my dwelling is not far." She helped him to his feet, and Terk found himself leaning heavily on this strange, ethereal woman. Despite her slender frame, she supported his weight easily, as if gravity had less claim on her. "Your world," Terk managed between labored breaths, "what is it called?" "Viridia," she replied, guiding him through the crystal forest. "Though that is merely the closest approximation your mind can process." As they walked, Terk noticed how the luminescent moss brightened in Nixia's presence, as if greeting her. Small, floating orbs of light emerged from the forest canopy, circling around them like curious fireflies. "Those are lumina," Nixia explained, noticing his fascination. "They are drawn to new energy signatures. They find you intriguing." "That makes 2 of us," Terk said weakly, offering a pained smile. Nixia's mental voice carried a hint of amusement. "You face death, yet you attempt humor. Your species is indeed curious." They arrived at what appeared to be a living structure, a dwelling grown from the crystal formations themselves, pulsing with gentle light. Inside, the space was minimally furnished but somehow deeply comforting. The walls themselves seemed to hum with the same melodic sound that had awakened Terk. Rest, Nixia instructed, helping him onto a surface that conformed to his body as he lay down. I will attend to your wounds. As she placed her hands over his injured ribs, Terk felt a warmth spreading through his chest. The pain began to subside, replaced by a tingling sensation that was not unpleasant. What are you doing? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Encouraging your body to heal itself, she replied. You have the knowledge within you already, I merely remind it. Terk's eyes grew heavy as a profound sense of peace washed over him. The last thing he saw before drifting into sleep was Nixia's face hovering above his, her galaxy eyes watching him with curious intensity. Rest, star traveler, her voice whispered in his mind. Tomorrow we will speak of why you have come to Viridia and why the stars have brought you to me. As consciousness slipped away, Terk couldn't help but feel that his accidental arrival on this strange world was perhaps not so accidental after all. His last thought before surrendering to healing sleep was that Nixia's touch had felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. 3 days passed like a dream as Terk regained his strength under Nixia's care. The fractures in his ribs had nearly healed, a process that should have taken weeks, and the gash above his eye had vanished without a trace. Each morning, he awoke to find Nixia watching him with those mesmerizing violet eyes, her presence both comforting and unsettling in its otherworldliness. Your recovery exceeds expectations, she observed on the 4th morning, placing a bowl of iridescent fruit before him. Your species possesses remarkable resilience. Terk smiled, taking a bite of the fruit. It tasted like a perfect blend of peach and starlight. Or maybe you're just an exceptional healer. A faint shimmer rippled across Nixia's opalescent skin, her version of a blush he had learned. Today I will take you to meet the others, she said, her mental voice carrying a hint of apprehension that Terk hadn't heard before. Others, your family. My kind, the Luminari, they are curious about you, she paused, studying him. No human has walked among us for 1,000 cycles of the twin moons. Terk stood, testing his healed body. Should I be concerned? Nixia's silver hair flowed around her face as she tilted her head. They will not harm you while you are under my protection, but understand, our ways are governed by ancient laws. We are not meant to reveal ourselves fully to outsiders. The journey through the crystal forest was breathtaking. In daylight, the landscape transformed into a kaleidoscope of color and light. The twin suns, one blue, one gold, cast prismatic rainbows through every crystal formation. Luminescent creatures scurried across their path, resembling a cross between rabbits and jellyfish. I've never seen anything so beautiful, Terk murmured. Beauty can conceal danger, Nixia reminded him. Those creatures you admire, their touch can paralyze a being 10 times your size. As they approached a clearing, Terk gasped. Before them rose a vast structure, a city grown from living crystal spiraling toward the sky in impossible configurations that defied earthly architecture. And everywhere beings like Nixia, some taller, some more ethereal, but all with that same opalescent skin and eyes containing universes. Welcome to Lumina Nexus, Nixia's voice whispered in his mind, the heart of my people. The Luminari turned as one to observe the human in their midst. Terk felt the weight of hundreds of ancient gazes upon him, some curious, some hostile, none indifferent. A figure approached taller than the others, his form more radiant. His mental voice, when it touched Terk's consciousness, was like thunder across a valley. I am Thalen, elder of the Luminari Council, he announced. You stand where no human was meant to tread, Lieutenant Terk Hayes of Earth. Terk straightened his posture, falling back on his military training. I mean no intrusion, my arrival was accidental. There are no accidents in the cosmic weave, Thalen replied. Nixia, you have acted without council permission in bringing this human to our sanctuary. Nixia stepped forward, her stance protective. He would have died, Elder, the predators were upon him. Perhaps that would have been the natural order, another elder said, her form shifting like mercury as she moved. We have remained hidden from the galaxy for reasons, child. I understand your caution, Terk interjected, but I assure you I pose no threat to your people. In fact, the Earth Alliance seeks peaceful coexistence with all sentient species. A ripple of mental communication passed between the Luminari, a conversation Terk could sense but not understand. Finally, Thalen addressed him again. You may remain until your ship is repaired. Nixia will continue as your guardian. But know this, human, there are aspects of our existence that must remain veiled from you, for your safety as much as our secrecy. With that cryptic warning, the gathering dispersed, though many Luminari continued to observe him from a distance. Nixia led Terk through the Crystal City, showing him wonders that defied his understanding of physics and biology. They're afraid of me, Tarek noted as they walked along a bridge that seemed spun from solidified moonlight. Not of you specifically, Nixia replied. Of what you represent, change, the unknown, she paused, looking out over the city. And they fear what might happen if you knew too much about us. What don't they want me to know? Nixia's mental voice grew quieter. The Luminari exist in multiple states. What you see is merely our harmonic form, the shape we take to interact peacefully with other beings and our environment. And your other forms. That is what you must never witness. The gravity in her mental tone was unmistakable. Our primal state, what we call the ascension, is deadly to all non-luminari. It is both our greatest defense and our heaviest burden. Days turned into weeks as Tarek's ship underwent repairs with luminari assistance. Each day, Nixia taught him more about her world, the language of crystals, the dancing patterns of the lumina, the history of her people written in the starlight. And each night they sat beneath the twin moons, their conversations growing deeper, more personal. Do you miss your home? She asked one evening as they watched the moons rise. Yes, Tarek admitted, but I'm starting to feel like I belong here in some strange way. That is dangerous thinking, Nixia warned, though her mental voice carried a warmth that belied her words. Tarek reached out, hesitating before gently touching the back of her hand. To his surprise, her skin felt warm, almost vibrating with contained energy. Why dangerous? Because I am beginning to feel the same, she confessed, and the elders would consider such a connection forbidden. Why? Tarek asked, not withdrawing his hand. Our emotions are tied to our energy states. Strong feelings can trigger transformation. If I were to care too deeply for you, you might transform into this ascension state you mentioned, Tarek finished for her, and that would harm me. It would destroy you, she corrected, pulling her hand away reluctantly. No non-luminari has ever survived witnessing the ascension. The energy release is catastrophic. Tarek was silent for a moment, processing this information. Then, with the recklessness that had carried him to the stars in the first place, he smiled. Then we'll just have to be careful, won't we? Against her better judgment, Nixia returned his smile, her entire form brightening. You humans have an exceptional capacity for ignoring warnings. It's one of our better qualities, Tarek replied, his heart racing as he realized how deeply he'd fallen for this being from beyond the stars. This woman who could literally kill him if she loved him too much. Unbeknownst to them, they were being observed. Elder Thalen watched from the shadows, his ancient eyes narrowed with concern. The connection forming between human and luminari was unexpected and potentially catastrophic. The council would need to act before the forbidden bond deepened further. Because what Nixia hadn't told Tarek was that the luminari legends spoke of such a union, a joining of energies that could either elevate both species or destroy them entirely. And now, those ancient prophecies were stirring to life beneath twin moons on a world of crystal and light. The mechanical hum of Tarek's repaired communication system broke the tranquil morning silence. A month had passed since his crash landing on Viridia, and what had begun as survival had transformed into something far more profound. The Luminari engineers had finally restored his ship's basic functions, though interstellar travel remained impossible without parts they couldn't replicate. Lieutenant Hayes to S. Horizon, he said, adjusting the frequency. Do you copy? Static crackled before a faint voice responded. Lieutenant Hayes, signal weak position under attack. Tarek's blood ran cold. Horizon, repeat, who's attacking? Corvox detected Viridia energy signatures. The transmission deteriorated into unintelligible noise before cutting out completely. What are Corvox? Nixia asked, entering the ship's cabin. She had sensed his distress from across the crystal fields. Mercenaries, resource hunters. They strip planets of valuable materials and sell them to the highest bidder, Tarek explained grimly. If they've detected Viridia's energy signature, they'll come for the crystals, and if they discover the Luminari. He didn't need to finish the thought. Nixia's expression darkened, her silver hair undulating with agitation. I must warn the council, she said, her mental voice tight with urgency. The council chamber was carved from a single massive crystal, its facets reflecting the concerned faces of the gathered Luminari. Tarek stood before them, uncomfortable under their scrutiny but determined to help. The Corvox care nothing for life, he explained. Only profit. The crystalline structures of this world would be worth fortunes in the galactic markets. And what would you have us do, human? Elder Thalen asked, his form pulsing with barely contained energy. Hide, flee, this has been our home for millennia. I suggest you prepare to defend it, Tarek replied firmly. My ship's sensors indicate they're approximately 3 days from atmosphere entry. I can try to contact them, negotiate. Negotiate, scoffed another Elder Selene. You suggest we reveal ourselves to yet more outsiders. With respect, Terk countered, they already know something valuable is here. Hiding won't save you, but I might be able to redirect them if I can establish communication. A ripple of mental conversation passed through the chamber, debating, arguing, calculating. Finally, Thalen nodded. You may attempt contact, but know this, Lieutenant Hayes, if you betray our trust, the consequences will be severe. As Terk worked to establish a communication link with the approaching Corvox vessel, Nyxia found herself torn between her duty to her people and her growing attachment to the human. She watched him work, admiring his determination and courage. You don't have to do this, she said privately. Your ship has enough power to leave orbit. You could escape before they arrive. Terk looked up from the console, surprise evident on his face. Leave, and abandon you all of you to face this alone. It is not your fight, she insisted, though her mental voice lacked conviction. It became my fight the moment I set foot on this world, he replied softly, the moment I met you. The intensity of his gaze made her skin shimmer involuntarily. She stepped closer, unable to resist the pull between them. Terk, there is something you should know about the Luminari, about me. Before she could continue, the communication system crackled to life. A harsh, guttural voice filled the cabin. This is Commander Drac of the Corvox Acquisition Fleet. Identify yourself. Terk straightened, switching to diplomat mode. This is Lieutenant Terk Hayes of the Earth Alliance. I'm stranded on this planet and conducting research. There's nothing of value here, Commander, just crystal formations with unusual energy signatures, nothing worth harvesting. A rough laugh answered him. Our scans indicate otherwise, Lieutenant. Those energy signatures are exactly what we seek. Prepare for our arrival. Any resistance will be met with force. The transmission cut off. Terk slammed his fist against the console. They're coming, he said grimly, and they won't be deterred. The next 2 days were a flurry of preparation. Despite the Elders' reluctance, Terk helped the Luminari establish defensive positions around their city. They lacked conventional weapons, but their ability to manipulate energy could be weaponized if necessary. On the eve of the Corvox arrival, Terk and Nyxia stood on the high crystal spire overlooking the vast forest. The twin moons cast long shadows across the landscape they had both come to love. If tomorrow goes badly, Terk began, his voice low, I want you to know that these weeks with you have been the most extraordinary of my life. Nyxia's mental touch was gentle against his consciousness. I have existed for 3 centuries, Terk Hayes, and never known a connection like ours. 300 years, he asked with a small smile. You look good for your age. Her laughter in his mind was like music. Time moves differently for the Luminari. We are bound to the energy of stars born from their light, returning to them in the end. Is that why the Elders fear your ascension form? Because it's like a star's energy. Nyxia's expression grew serious. The ascension is not merely energy release. It is transformation into our purest state, a being of raw cosmic power. It is beautiful, terrible, and absolutely fatal to any non-Luminari who witnesses it. Have you ever transformed? Terk asked, moving closer to her. Once, she admitted. When I was young, I lost control during a meteor shower. The energy, it consumed everything around me. That is why we are taught rigid emotional control from birth. Terk reached for her hand, interlacing his fingers with hers. Then I'll try not to make you too emotional. Dawn broke with the ominous sight of 3 Corvox ships entering Viridia's atmosphere. They were massive, industrial harvesters designed to extract resources with brutal efficiency. They landed in a clearing 2 kilometers from the Crystal City, disgorging armed troops and heavy machinery. Terk observed them through binoculars, his expression grim. At least 60 soldiers, mining equipment. They're not here to negotiate. The Council has reached a decision, Nyxia informed him, her mental voice tight with restraint. We will attempt to cloak the city and wait for them to leave. That won't work, Terk argued. Their sensors will detect the energy concentration, they'll find you. It is the Council's decision, she repeated, though he could sense her disagreement. True to Terk's prediction, it took the Corvox less than a day to locate the hidden city. Their commander, Drac, a hulking figure with cybernetic enhancements visible across his gray skin, approached with a squad of soldiers. I know you're here, he bellowed into the apparently empty clearing. Our sensors detect your energy signatures. Reveal yourselves or we start blasting. Terk emerged from the cloaking field, alone, hands raised. Commander Drac, I suggest you reconsider your approach. This planet is protected by Earth Alliance treaties. Drac laughed, a harsh mechanical sound. Treaties? Out here, you're a long way from Earth jurisdiction, Lieutenant. His eyes narrowed. Where are the energy sources our sensors detected? Living organisms with remarkable power signatures. I don't know what you're talking about, Tarek lied smoothly. Just unusual crystal formations, nothing worth starting a conflict over. Search the area, Drac ordered his troops. Find the source of those energy readings. To Tarek he added, your attempts at deception are amusing but futile. We know what we've found here, beings of pure energy. Imagine the price they'll fetch in the Corward markets. Tarek's blood ran cold. You're talking about sentient beings. I'm talking about profit, Drac corrected, motioning for his soldiers to restrain Tarek. And you're interfering with it. As the soldiers grabbed him, Tarek caught a glimpse of shimmer in the air, Nyxia, watching invisibly. He prayed she wouldn't intervene, wouldn't reveal herself. Take him back to the ship, Drac commanded. Perhaps solitary confinement will loosen his tongue about our valuable energy beings. As they dragged him away, Tarek locked eyes with the empty space where he knew Nyxia stood hidden. Don't, he mouthed silently. Stay hidden. But he could feel her anguish rippling through the mental connection they shared, her fear for him, her rage at the invaders and beneath. The Corvox prison ship hovered in Viridia's upper atmosphere, a looming obsidian monolith against the iridescent sky. Inside its reinforced brig, Tarek struggled against energy restraints that bit into his wrists. 3 days of interrogation had left him exhausted, but he remained defiant. Commander Rawl, the Corvox leader, had been particularly interested in the Luminaries' transformation abilities and how they might be weaponized. Your alien companions hide their true potential, Rawl hissed, his scaled face inches from Tarek's. Tell me how to force their transformation, and perhaps I'll let your broken body return to that miserable planet. Tarek spat blood onto the polished floor. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you. The truth was, despite his deepening relationship with Nyxia, she had never revealed her transformed state. Her people guarded this secret fiercely, even from those they trusted. Rawl activated a neural disruptor, sending waves of agony through Tarek's nervous system. The Elder's compound was empty when we raided it. Your Luminari friends have abandoned you, human. They've fled deeper into the crystal forests. Tarek closed his eyes, focusing on memories of Nyxia to endure the pain. He hoped she was safe, that she had heeded the Elder's warnings to hide. What he didn't know was that at that very moment, Nyxia was infiltrating the Corvox ship, her body altered to mimic the signature of their technology. In the corridors of the prison level, Nyxia moved like liquid shadow. 2 Luminari rebels accompanied her, Aloran and Janel, both having mastered the art of energy manipulation enough to temporarily appear as Corvox guards. They had defied the Council's orders against interfering. The human cell is 3 levels down, Aloran whispered mentally. Nyxia, are you certain this is worth the risk? No outsider has ever witnessed the final illumination and lived. Nyxia's thoughts were resolute. He calls to me across the void between our kinds. I cannot leave him. The Elders believe he is merely a curiosity to you, Janel added. A passing fascination. The Elders do not know what exists between us, Nyxia replied. They cannot feel the connection. They descended through the ship's core, passing security protocols with stolen Corvox identification. When they reached the detention level, alarms suddenly blared throughout the vessel. We've been discovered, Aloran warned. The corridor ahead filled with armed Corvox soldiers. Behind them, more security forces converged, cutting off their escape. Nyxia's companions exchanged a knowing glance. They were trapped. Get to Tarek, Janel urged Nyxia. We will create a diversion. Before she could protest, her companions dropped their disguises. Their bodies began to glow with increasing intensity, drawing the attention of the Corvox forces. It was a sacrificial move, a partial transformation that would drain their life energy but might allow Nyxia to reach Tarek. She slipped past the chaos, her heart heavy with her friend's sacrifice. When she reached Tarek's cell, she found him barely conscious, suspended in a containment field. Commander Rawl stood before him, preparing another round of interrogation. Release him, Nyxia commanded, dropping her technological disguise. Rawl turned, a cruel smile spreading across his reptilian features. Perfect timing. I was just explaining to your human how we plan to extract the transformation secrets from your kind. He activated a control on his wrist, and the ship's engines surged. We're leaving Viridia's atmosphere. My scientists are eager to begin dissecting captive Luminari to understand your energy composition. Nyxia assessed the situation with cold clarity. The ship was breaking orbit, her companions were likely captured or worse, and Tarek hung before her, broken but alive. In that moment, she made her decision. Tarek, she whispered into his mind, look at me. His swollen eyes opened, focusing on her with effort. Nyxia, you shouldn't have come. I had to, her mental voice carried all the emotion she had kept contained. What exists between us? It is rare even among my people. Understanding dawned in his eyes. You're going to transform. She nodded. No non-luminary has ever survived witnessing our true form. The energy discharge overwhelms all biological systems. Then I die seeing the real you, he said with surprising strength. It's worth it. Commander Rahl realized what was happening too late. Stop her, he shouted to his guards. Containment protocols. But Nixia had already begun the transformation. Her physical form dissolved into pure light, expanding to fill the chamber. The air crackled with energy as her consciousness stretched beyond normal perception. This was the final illumination, the Luminary's ultimate expression of being, pure sentient energy unbound by physical limitations. The Corvox nearest to her disintegrated instantly, their molecular structure unable to withstand the energy discharge. Equipment melted, alarms failed, and the ship's systems began to crash. Commander Rahl screamed as the light consumed him, leaving nothing but ash. In the center of this storm of energy, Terk remained. The containment field around him shattered, and he fell to his knees, directly exposed to Nixia's true form. By all known science, by all Luminary history, he should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, something miraculous happened. Where their minds had connected before, now their very essence mingled. Terk felt Nixia's energy flow through him, not destroying but healing. Every cell in his body resonated with her frequency, changing not to resist her power but to harmonize with it. Impossible, her thoughts echoed around him, both terrified and elated. Terk reached out his hand toward the center of the light. Not impossible, just us. The ship's emergency systems engaged, trying to compensate for the massive energy fluctuations. Escape pods jettisoned automatically, carrying surviving Corvax away from the failing vessel. Through the chaotic light, Terk could see Aloran and Janel being led toward the remaining escape pods by other freed Luminary prisoners. Gradually, Nixia began to reform her physical shape, drawing her energy back into a concentrated form. She materialized before Terk, her appearance subtly altered, her skin now translucent crystal, her eyes deeper violet than before. She reached for him with trembling hands, expecting to find him dying. Instead, Terk stood with renewed strength, the wounds from his torture healed. More than that, faint traces of luminescence pulsed beneath his skin, following the rhythm of his heartbeat. How, she whispered, this time with her actual voice, the first time he had heard it outside his mind. Terk pulled her close, feeling the lingering energy between them stabilize into something new. You said your transformation was lethal because other beings resisted. I didn't resist. I accepted all of you. The ship lurched violently beneath them as systems continued to fail. Displays showed they were re-entering Viridia's atmosphere at a dangerous angle. We need to reach an escape pod, Terk said, suddenly alert to their precarious situation. Nixia shook her head. There's no time. She took his hands in hers. Do you trust me? With everything I am, he replied without hesitation. Then hold on to me and do not let go. As the ship began to break apart around them, Nixia partially transformed again, not the full revelation of her true self, but enough to surround them both in a protective field of energy. Together, they phased through the ship's hull and plummeted toward the planet below, two beings of light falling like a meteor through Viridia's atmosphere. The Corvax vessel exploded above them, raining debris across the sky. But enveloped in Nixia's energy, Terk felt only exhilaration and wonder as they descended toward the luminescent forests of her home. For the first time in the recorded history of her people, a Luminary had revealed their true form to an outsider, and instead of death, it had brought transformation. As they touched down on the crystalline ground, their bodies solidifying, they knew nothing would ever be the same. The boundary between their species had been forever altered. Nixia's light continued to pulse within Terk's veins, and his humanity had somehow tempered her energy, creating something entirely new. The elders will want answers, Nixia said, looking toward the distant sacred grove where her people would be gathering. Terk laced his fingers through hers, marveling at the subtle glow where their skin touched. Then let's give them something worth believing in. Together, they walked toward the heart of the forest, leaving footprints of light in their wake, two beings forever changed by the power of acceptance. Dawn broke over Viridia, casting rainbow light through the crystal spires of the Luminary sacred grove. 6 weeks had passed since the destruction of the Corvax command ship. Though most of the invaders had retreated from the system, remnants of their forces remained in orbit, regrouping and planning their next assault. In the central chamber of the council hall, Terk stood before the assembled Luminary elders. His appearance had continued to evolve. Streaks of luminescence now flowed permanently beneath his skin, following his veins like rivers of light. His eyes, once deep brown, now held flecks of violet that caught the ambient glow of the crystal walls. "The Corvax will return," he said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "Not just for your crystals, but for your people. They've seen what you're capable of, and they won't stop until they harness that power." Elder Valerie, the most senior of the council, leaned forward. "And you propose we fight? For millennia, the Luminari have been pacifists. Our transformation was meant for communion with the universe, not warfare." "I'm not suggesting you become warriors," Tarek replied. "I'm suggesting we create an alliance. My people have defense technology, yours have abilities beyond our comprehension. Together, we might create something new, protection without destruction." Nixia stepped forward to stand beside him. Since their transformation together, their connection had deepened into something beyond either of their cultures' understanding. They could now share thoughts without effort, sense each other across vast distances, and in moments of intimacy, their energies merged in ways that transcended physical boundaries. "The old laws no longer apply," she addressed the council. "Terek's survival proves this. For generations, we believed our true nature was inherently destructive to other forms of life. We were wrong." Murmurs rippled through the gathered Luminari. What Nixia and Terek had experienced challenged thousands of years of their most fundamental beliefs. Elder Valerie's gaze shifted between them. "You claim your humans survived the final illumination because of love." "Not exactly," Terek said. "It wasn't just emotion that protected me. It was acceptance, complete and unconditional acceptance of Nixia's true nature. No resistance, no fear." "Perhaps," Nixia added, "it is not our energy that is lethal, but the natural resistance other beings feel when confronted with something so different from themselves." The concept hung in the air, revolutionary and challenging. If true, it meant the Luminaries' isolation had been unnecessary, their greatest fear based on a misunderstanding of their own nature. "You ask us to trust your people," another elder Thanner spoke up. "Yet humans have their own history of conflict and conquest. How do we know Earth will not become another Corvax?" Terek nodded, acknowledging the concern. "I can't guarantee every human will react as I did, but I can promise to be the bridge between our worlds, to help both sides understand each other before judgment or fear can take root." As the council deliberated, Nixia took Terek's hand, their energies automatically synchronizing. The connection they shared was visible now, tendrils of light intertwining where their skin touched. "Whatever they decide," she whispered into his mind, "we've already changed everything." He squeezed her hand in response, still marveling at how their touch created small nova bursts of energy visible to everyone around them. What had begun as a crash landing had evolved into the most profound connection of his life, one that had literally changed his cellular structure. Their private moment was interrupted by a young luminary rushing into the chamber. "Elders, the observers report Corvax ships have entered the atmosphere, at least 3 warships on approach to the sacred grove." The chamber erupted with voices, some calling for evacuation, others for using their combined energy to shield their sanctuary. Terek released Nixia's hand and stepped forward. "Let me contact them," he said. "The communication equipment from my scout ship, can it be adapted to reach their vessels?" Elder Valerie hesitated, then nodded to an attendant who hurried away to retrieve the salvaged technology. "What do you intend, human?" "To show them what they're truly facing," Terek replied, a plan forming in his mind. "Not just the Luminari, but what we can become together." Within the hour, the modified transmitter was set up in the Grove's center. Above, the Corvax warships had taken position, their weapon systems charged and ready. Through the crystal canopy, their menacing silhouettes blotted out patches of sky. Terek activated the transmitter. "Corvax fleet, this is Lieutenant Terek Hayes of Earth Alliance, previously your prisoner. I request parley on behalf of Viridia and its people." The response was immediate, Commander Rawl's second-in-command appearing on the projected screen. "The human lives, interesting." The Corvax officer's scaled face showed no emotion. "You have nothing to offer us, Lieutenant. We have analyzed the energy signature of this planet's inhabitants. The potential weapons applications are significant." "Then you should see the full extent of what you're dealing with," Terek replied calmly. He turned to Nixia and the assembled Luminari. "Are you ready?" Nixia nodded, and around the grove, dozens of Luminari moved into formation. They had spent days practicing this coordinated demonstration after Terek had proposed it, a controlled, simultaneous partial transformation. "Witness," Terek said into the transmitter, then stepped back to join Nixia. At once, the Luminari began to transform, not completely into their pure energy state, but enough that their physical forms became translucent, radiating power that caused the very air to shimmer. Nixia took Terek's hands. and instead of resisting or shielding himself from her energy, he welcomed it. To the watching Corvox, the spectacle was clear. Dozens of Luminari, their energy controlled and focused, with a human at their center, not dying but sharing in their power. More importantly, the sensors on their ships would be registering energy levels far beyond what they had previously measured. Tarek spoke again, his voice steady despite the current of energy flowing through him. Your commander discovered what happens when you threaten the Luminari. I discovered what happens when you embrace them. Choose wisely which path you follow. On the projection, the Corvox officer's composure faltered. This changes our assessment. We will withdraw to reconsider our approach. A wise decision, Tarek replied. And when you return, if you return, come in peace. There are wonders here beyond weaponry, benefits beyond conquest. The transmission ended, and minutes later, the Corvox warships began ascending back into Viridia's upper atmosphere. The immediate threat had passed, though Tarek harbored no illusions that they had seen the last of the expansionist race. As the Luminari returned to their normal state, exhausted but exhilarated by their coordinated display, Nexia pulled Tarek into an embrace. Where their bodies touched, small ripples of light danced across their skin. That was either very brave or very foolish, she said, half teasing. Maybe a bit of both, he admitted, but they needed to see that there's more to gain from understanding your people than exploiting them. Elder Valerie approached them, her ancient eyes thoughtful. The Council has reached a decision. We will send an envoy to Earth, a delegation to establish diplomatic relations with your people. Tarek's eyes widened in surprise. That's more than I hoped for. And you too, the Elder continued, will lead this delegation. Who better to introduce our worlds than those who have already bridged the gap between them? Nixia's joy radiated through their bond, warming Tarek from within. We accept this honor, she replied formally, though her excitement was palpable in Tarek's mind. That night they stood together on the crystal observation platform, looking up at the stars. Tarek's repaired scout ship waited nearby, modified with Luminari technology to accommodate their journey back to Earth. The delegation would follow in a larger vessel once initial contact was established. Are you nervous? Nixia asked, leaning against him as ribbons of aurora danced in Viridia's night sky. About bringing you home, a little, he admitted. Our worlds are so different. She turned in his arms, her face illuminated by the gentle glow emanating from both their bodies. And yet, look at us. Different species, different origins. Same heart, he finished, pressing his forehead to hers. As they kissed, their energies mingled visibly around them, creating a small nebula of light that reflected off the crystal platform. Their unique bond, part physical, part energetic, wholly unprecedented, was living proof that the greatest distances could be crossed, the deepest differences embraced. In 2 days, they would begin their journey across the stars to Earth, carrying with them the promise of a new era of cooperation. There would be challenges ahead, cultural misunderstandings, lingering Corvox threats, the inevitable fear of the unknown on both sides. But as pioneers of this new connection, they carried something powerful, living proof that acceptance could transform what once seemed incompatible into something harmonious and beautiful. Under Viridia's shimmering sky, Tarek held the woman who had changed everything for him, whose true form had nearly killed him, whose love had ultimately transformed him. Together they stood at the threshold of possibility, their joined hands creating ripples of light that seemed to reach toward the distant stars they would soon traverse. The void between their worlds, once vast and insurmountable, now seemed like nothing more than a pathway home.